Here's just a little bit about Belinda's wisdom where we're at the moment. What I said, and this I've shared this with my team. So I think we all understand the paradigms have shifted permanently. Business as we know, life as we know, have definitely changed. And in this world, we do need to we all need to plan differently. We need to do planning in our households, in our businesses, everywhere. So yes, business will never be the same. What we're seeing in our own business, we do planning every day. What's used to be a monthly activity is now every single day we need to plan. So people want data. The other thing is I see everyone's thirst for this COVID data, number of cases, all that sort of thing. The same in business. All of our customers that we talk to at the moment is people want data. They want information so that they can substantiate their decisions and take the actions. The other thing people are worried about is their data. We have a customer we're dealing with at the moment. We need to do some work for them, and it's a real challenge around accessing the data, for us sharing the data, and all those good controls around security. So people are worried about their data. The other thing we're finding is a lot of our customers still want to train. People are hungry to keep learning. People want to learn in their home. People have more time. And myself personally, I have so much more time because I'm not traveling. All of a sudden, it seems like all of us have this extra hour, 2 hours a day that we've been gifted because we don't have to travel. And most of my clients want to use that time to train. And now is a perfect time to get people training in the planning solution, help them with the budgeting so that they can, when we come out of this, have learned to use these tools better. So at Mindful, we are going to be running training programs, short little 2-hour sessions in the next 2 months. So Karen and her team will send that through for everyone to consume. And it's really great way for all of your people to do a bit of, workspace training, a bit of port training, all this sort of training you never got around to. Now we have some time, let's get onto it. The last two things is documentation. Because there's going to be so many people contributing to the plans in planning analytics, there's a real urgency for us to make sure that we capture the different data, the different points. So the risk we see at the moment is everyone's planning together and that people may be overwriting information in the wrong space. So it's very important that people take these snapshots at the plan. So let's say we do a simulation around COVID and we go, that's great, but we don't think that's reality. Let's go back to the other bit of planning we've done. When you've taken the documentation snapshots, it's easy for you to then go back and say, okay, right, that was the best one. Let's do that. So for all of our clients to help with this sort of process, we're going to give everyone CubeDocs, the documentation tool we have, free for the month of April. All you need to do is we'll just reach out to you and get that installed and get your data in there and use it the whole month of April. Take regular snapshots of your data, your loads, your rules, all that sort of good stuff, so that you have a point in time referring back to those planning solutions that you do. And the last point I have here is it's just really good to have some really vulnerable, real connections. Because we're all sitting in our home, you can't help but to bring the conversation personal. You're having a conversation with someone, and I was saying to the guys, I had a difficult conversation with a customer the other day, and it wasn't difficult at all because we could connect, right? And we had a chat and a laugh about where he lives and I live. So it's a really good opportunity for all of us to really have some real connections in business and also on a personal level. Why are we running these sessions? Like I said before, this is all about planning, right? Even in our business, Michael, Corinne, Tana, myself, every morning are planning what's coming up, what's dropping off, plan. And I'm sure all of you guys are exactly the same. So we thought, let's come up with a way that you guys can quickly simulate this impact of the COVID, react to it, and do things. So just to introduce the team, most of you may know these guys. They're pretty faces. We've got Corin there, our COO, Michael, our CTO, and Tana, our CFO. And then you've got Kurt, who is our data practice lead, Daniel Sun, our architect, and then Glenn, our support desk manager. So these guys are all here to help and do some demonstrations for you. So we are going to turn off our cameras just so that I can give Michael a bit more bandwidth. And I'm going to pass over to Michael now to introduce the first section of it.
Okay, thanks, Belinda. Hey, okay, just to set the scene, following on from what Belinda was saying, we've got a standard model, our MyBI solution, which we've built a scenario planning app on top of. The interesting thing was when I built this, I didn't actually have to make too many changes to the model. It was really around just laying out the application the right way to allow you to be able to plan and see the impact of that straight away. So I'm going to take you through a demonstration of that today. So the first thing I'm going to show is what we do around setting up our scenario, or the different version we're going to plan essentially. And I'm sure in your own model you'll all have different ways of doing this, but what I found was quite neat was just to bring everything together into a single page so that you can create scenarios easily and compare the different scenarios as well. So I've actually set this up. I've created a new version called Working Plan. You can obviously have action buttons here which allow you to create that new version, so you can create as many as you want for modeling and analysis purposes. Once you've done that, the second step would be to create a variance calculation. So this and set up a baseline version. So for my working plan scenario, I want to compare that back to my working budget scenario, for example, because I've just gone through and I've done all this planning. I've put together a budget for the 21 year, and then obviously COVID-19 hit, so I need to reassess that. So I'm going to use that as my starting point for planning in this demonstration. Some of the other considerations you might want to look at when you're doing scenario planning is whether you want detailed modelling to occur, and at what sort of level. I'm going to use a hybrid approach, so I'm going to keep all of my main models that I use for budgeting and forecasting on, and I'm just going to show you what you can do in terms of data spreading and being able to push down data and make changes quite easily. But I will keep these on for now. But depending on what you're doing, if you're just doing target setting and you want to say, okay, maybe I want to understand the impact of decreasing personnel by 30%. I want to look at the impact on my sales at the actual GL level, at the account level, and run those scenarios at that level. It may make sense to turn some of these models off. Setting up scenario, obviously some of these, setting up security, obviously some of these scenarios may be quite sensitive, so you need to think about that as well. And then ultimately, when you're setting up these versions, you just want to copy in the base data. And if you're going along conducting scenarios every month, obviously you can load your actuals and things like that into it as well. So I just wanted to point that out in terms of what you need to be thinking about when you do set up these scenarios. From a data perspective, one of the things we found, oops, I'll just minimize this. One of the things we found quite useful is just bringing in some information, some extra information to help you with your decision making. What planning analytics allows you to do quite easily is be able to add attributes to your different dimensions or your different structures that you have in the solution. Some of the useful ones we found was just being able to add a classification on the accounts dimension, for example, so you can understand, what really is discretionary expenditure versus variable and fixed, which Tana's going to take you through. On the positions dimension, just being able to look at your positions and understand, which ones really are critical to the business, which ones, perhaps aren't so important right now, and just give them a classification. So when you're actually doing your planning and you're in the planning screens, you can see that, and that'll help with your decision making too. Again, if you've got customers on the sales on the customer dimension, just adding an industry attribute seemed like a logical thing to do, just so you can see while you're planning which industries customers are in, and obviously there's going to be an impact on that with the current situation. Okay, so I'm just going to flick through to my main screen. So when we're looking at these modelings, you could be looking at a couple of different things. You might want to have a look at your EBIT number and just understand, you look at what's involved if you're experiencing losses in terms of sales, and just try to get that into a manageable level. I'm going to focus on that for the purposes of the demo. You could also be looking at debt or cash in your balance sheet, and we do have an integrated balance sheet and cash flow model here, but yeah, I'm just going to focus around EBIT for this demonstration. So ultimately, I can see my P&L down here. I can see that I'm planning for an EBIT of 1.9. I've got some good sales coming through and so forth. Obviously, the COVID-19 scenario hit, so I need to go and first have a look at my revenue streams and understand and simulate what the impact may be on those. So if I just drill to my sales view, one of the things I've added to each of these views is that EBIT number, because that's what I'm looking at here, and I want to see when I make changes, what is the impact on my bottom line as well. But I can see I've got 9 million in sales, and I can see that here I've got my sales broken out by customer. Obviously, if I did my forecasting by products, I could look at that as well, or a combination of them both. But yeah, I can see my customers. I've added that attribute, which I've added in, which just tells me what industry they're in. So I can see, I've got a tourism customer there, for example. Maybe that's not the best industry to be in at the moment. So I can make decisions like, okay, so I'm going to plan for no sales to that tourism customer at the moment, because they're not really doing too much. And then I can have a look at what the impact is there. I can also go through my other areas. So I might say, well, I've cut that out in the east. The east has been hit particularly hard. So I'm going to decrease revenue by, I don't know, 50%, for example. And I can use our top-down spreading techniques to be able to do that. So I just type decrease 50 in, and those changes ripple down the hierarchy. And I guess the thing I want to point out at this stage is I am at quite a high level. So for my working plan, I'm looking at period 2021. So I'm spreading across the entire period in this case. If I had actuals in here, I'd just spread to the remainder. I'm looking at my key entity that I've got here, and I'm looking at all the customers I have in my plan, and those changes are essentially rippling down through. So I can go through, and I might want to make some additional customers. Let's decrease that one by 50, let's say 60% in that area as well. And just see those changes flow through.
Michael, you're a little bit quiet and breaking in and out. I'm not sure if you've moved away from the mic.
I think it might just be the internet connection. Okay, I'll try to talk louder though.
Thank you.
And as I go through and I make these adjustments, obviously I can just trace the impact. I'll just do that one a little bit more for the purposes of this demo as well. All right, so I've made these adjustments, and then if I go back to my main EBIT screen, I can see that obviously the world has changed, and before I was planning for revenue to come in, now I'm actually planning for a loss. Let's wait for that to come up, of $2.3 million, and now I need to think about how I'm going to recover that loss. And over here, I've just got a visualization which shows me how far away I am from my original working budget as well. So at this point, I'm just going to hand over to Tana just to talk about what we can do in terms of reducing expenditure.
So planning in this time can be very daunting because a lot of this is outside of our control. But one of the things that's more in our control is our operating expenses. And when I think about operating expenses, I will break it down into 4 buckets. The first bucket being subsidies. So which subsidies can you apply for? Then the next big thing is the emergency steps. What can I change today that will free up cash? Then I'll go into almost my variable expenses. That is stuff that you can change that will have an impact now and for the next 6 months. And lastly, structural changes that you can initiate now that will change your longer term as you move out of the situation. So if we go back to the first bucket, subsidies, You look at, so what subsidies are available to you now? How much is that, and how much cash could that mean for you? So it's stuff like the wage subsidy, mortgage holidays, the small asset tax threshold that changed, reduction in interest rates, all of that in the model. You can put it in and you will immediately see how it changes your cash. And the second one is a cost that you can stop. It is mostly your discretionary spend. In the model, Michael showed you that you can link your different expense types, and you can put it in as discretionary or variable or fixed. For discretionary, most of that you can almost like cut or at least reduce by 80%. There is stuff like travel, international, domestic, some professional fees. Maybe there's some capital projects that you've not yet committed that you can put on hold. In the third bucket, we've got variable expenses, and those you can either pull back or you might want to redirect. If you think about marketing, for marketing, you can move your campaigns out. Maybe you want to cancel a campaign, or you want to redirect campaigns to specific industries or customers. Also under variable, there might be capital projects that you've already kicked off. Those you might want to delay or you might want to slow down. You can look at your subsidies to cancel it as your headcount fluctuates, or you might just not need it anymore. Under variable, I would also note that some of your contracts might have volume discounts associated with it. And it might be that you trigger some of that discounts, and you must just make note if it's going to impact you later on. The last one is on fixed cost. And I like to think about fixed cost as cost that's variable over time. Now is a very good time to identify which of that can structurally change your position that will help you to get out of COVID-19. So it might be rental contracts. Maybe you don't need such a big office space, or you can totally get rid of office space when your rental agreement comes up. Other things might be hosting costs that you can look up. And then the last one, and Michael will show you quite a bit of it, is on staff or headcount. Triggers that you can pull now. And then a lot of the costs you might not be able to get rid of, and you don't want to get rid of it, but you can invest in it differently. So if I think about staff, it is you can now invest with training for your staff as we get out, they're upskilled. Maybe there's some R&D work that you don't always have time for that you can invest in now. I will now give back to Michael to take you through it.
As Tana pointed out, we've got these different categories or classifications which we've associated with our accounts, so we can go through these and just know which ones we may be able to change versus those which we couldn't. I don't think I've got any discretionary here, but I might look at my my variable costs, for example, and I might say, well, advertising, perhaps we're doing something different, or maybe we can drop that expenditure altogether. Marketing, we might want to run different campaigns, but I'm just going to decrease that by 50%. For now, just so I can start to pull that EBIT number back within the try to get closer to the break-even point as well. Things like distribution costs, there might not be anything we can do about warehousing, but given that we're not using some of our premises, we may be able to change the impact for some of the months for rent and so forth. Right, and I'm just gonna make a few changes so you can see how you can get closer to that number. Freight, that's essentially going to be halved, so I'm just going to change that to 200K for now for planning purposes, and make those sort of reductions. And then, once I'm finished looking at my expenditure, then I can start looking at my more detailed expenditure items such as personnel, and also my capital plan as well, to see what else I can potentially do. So I'm just going to go through to personnel now, and I'm going to hand over to Corinne to talk about some of the considerations you need to be aware of when you're looking at reducing personnel costs.
Thanks, Michael. Interesting times for us all ahead, and I think workforce planning is going to be coming to the fore of all of our minds as we start working through the next couple of weeks. And we got some amazing advice today, is not only modelling out 4 weeks, but what's happening in the next 8 and then 12, so that we not only have a plan for the current scenario, but we have a plan for how we get out of the scenario, because there is going to be obviously impacts for your business as you move forward and come out of it. So during these unpredictable times, I think workforce planning is going to be really important. This particular model enables you to model several different scenarios, and as we know, times are changing on a daily basis, and there could be several scenarios that you might need to work through in terms of changing employment conditions, for example. So for one, you might want to look at, what points of time may I need to trigger where I have my workforce working potentially 4 days rather than 5 days. To supplement that, if I was to model out my leave that they have, if some of them wanted to volunteer to take leave, are there some people that might want to take a sabbatical at this time, so time out that they can then obviously, as Tana alluded to a little bit, it's the perfect time to do training and enhance your capability. And then also, worst case scenario, if you had to get it further down the line in terms of disestablishing roles, and as Michael's shown a little bit in the model, you can classify those roles and work through a process that is fairly transparent in terms of why you might even wanting to be as disestablishing those. And I think the really important thing around, and what we find around modelling, is that probably allows you to actually accelerate your processes. So if you needed to push a trigger, you're probably well planned and ready to do so. It allows for collaboration. So as a management team, we find it really handy to be able to collaborate and have visibility of a dashboard and our numbers. And it also allows you agility, and Michael will show you through how you can change some levers, what those impacts are, so that you can be agile, so that you can plan for your workforce not only for today, but also in the future, in 8 and potentially 12 weeks, as we start to come out of this, all fingers crossed. So I'll hand you back to Michael.
Thank you, Gurun. Okay, so I've just gone through to my personnel area, and I've just mocked up this, I've put together this dashboard off an existing personnel model. If you're modeling personnel at the moment, these models are relatively standard, so it should look similar to what you've got. If we look along the top, I've got my key metrics, which I'm interested in. Again, I'm chasing that EBIT number, so I'm going to look at that. Remuneration, I can see that that's quite a key expense for me, so I've got 1.18 million in that. Benefits, so I'm planning for some benefits here. I'm planning for bonuses and salary increases as well. And I'm planning for some new hires. So in terms of getting that down, I guess, you know, there's a number of things that we can do just looking at these numbers. I'll just explain the dashboard a bit more. Here I'm looking at my personnel over time. I'm looking at my REM number. Obviously, you can change your selections in these workbooks to display whatever you want. And I'm looking at my leave profile as well. So at the moment, I'm planning for, everyone's planning to take leave around the December-January period for the most part. But I may also want to look at moving that, and I'll show you how you can simulate that too. I guess, yeah, and the last part is I've got some key assumptions which are driving my modelling. So when I was putting together the budget, I was planning on, you know, giving people bonuses and increasing the salary as I may do year on year. Now, because of the COVID-19 scenario in the situation, I may look at dropping those. So just by changing my high-level assumptions, I can look at what impact that has had, and I can see that, you know, obviously my curves moved down here, and I've managed to drop the costs quite considerably. Travel allowance, maybe I can look at reducing that because nobody's traveling at the moment as well. I might just cut that all out together. And again, I can see, you know, further drops as well. So I can do a few things here. The leave profile is an interesting one because depending on what strategy I have, maybe I do want people to go on leave for a while. So if I just drill through to my assumptions, and I can see I've got a relatively standard profile around leave where it's quite heavy in the December-January month. So what I can do here is I can just flatten out the profile for those 2 periods, and then I can make adjustments in April or May. Maybe I want people to take the majority of leave in those periods. And then as I go back to my dashboard, I can actually see the impact of that. So I can see the curves moved, and I've made some further gains as well because of my leave liability assumptions. So that kind of gives you a view of what you could do at a relatively high level. And then if I want to go down to the detail, I'll select my replan workforce button, and this actually takes me through to my planning template where I can see my different staff members broken down by cost centre or region along there. I've also added that attribute to help with my decision making. So maybe some of these deferrable positions I can cut all together, and I can look at what the impact would be for that. If I did want to, I could also, I know that some places have considered, working 4-day weeks or, reducing FTE to 75%. So I could actually make those changes and across all the different employees and just see what the impact of that would be as well. And as I navigate back to my dashboard, I can look at that and see what that's essentially done there. Oops. I go back here. Yeah, that should have been 0.75%. Made the situation worse. All right. Okay, so I can see that that's dropped a bit as well. Obviously, there's various things I can do here too. I can simulate, what would it look like if I put anyone who wants to go on unpaid leave too, because maybe they have to stay at home to look after their children or sick people. So I can actually come in here. I've just added an paid leave start and then end period to my modelling, which is pretty straightforward to do. And maybe I put some people on leave for that period. If I go down here, I'll just copy that down so you can see the impact of that as well. And then when I go back to the dashboard, I can obviously see that my remuneration's increased. Obviously, if I did that for more employees, I'd see a bigger impact. The other sorts of things I could do is essentially making redundancies if I do need to as well. And I'll just make a few across the board just so we can see what that looks like too. And really build out that scenario just based on what my current thinking is, and just seeing how I can get closer to that number. So that's really what I wanted to show around personnel, just the different levers that you can pull and the changes that you can make just to help reduce or simulate reducing costs, just in case you need to take the next course of action. Depending on your modelling, you might have other models as well. I haven't got much in the way of my capital plan here. I've actually gone through and turned off the items that I'd planned, but you can build levers into your model as well. So maybe I was planning, some new building. I've got an ATM machine that might not be so useful at the moment. I might have had some marketing expenditure here, and I can just toggle these things on and off and see what the impact on my plan is as well. So I can go through and make some of those changes too.
So just before we go on to Kurt, one of the things we also talked about, and everyone's hitting the internet and getting information and dialing in and all that sort of thing. So one of the things my team's talked about is let's be ready and let's help our customers plan quickly. Michael's taken you guys through how can we plan for people and sales impact, all that sort of thing. But then the second conversation is how do we get this information to people every morning quick so they don't have to call me up or email me, and we release a little bit of bandwidth for everyone. So Kurt's going to take you guys through a very easy way for people everywhere, wherever they're sitting, to consume the information. So Kurt, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Belinda. Hopefully you can all see my screen. Yeah, so as Belinda said, nowadays, we're planning for these situations, but we're also needing to make decisions very quickly. And people are needing to look at data on a day-to-day basis. They need to see what's happening today versus what happened yesterday. What I'm going to be talking about is data across your business, whether you're in IT sector, HR, wherever you are. How do you get the data that's meaningful to you? How do we have a single view across all my data across the company? And that includes the stuff that Michael's working on. So what I'm just going to be showing here is quickly just a demo of the latest Cognos. This is Cognos 11.1.5, and just some of its features and how it can really help in these times, how we can get this up and running very, very quickly, very, very simple, and how it can really show you what you need to see across your business. So what I've done here is I've just created this dashboard. I've just taken a bunch of data sets. Some of it's public information. Here's cases of confirmed coronavirus cases. Here's the latest video. This could be a news feed to what's happening. This could be anything. You could have a feed to saying, is lockdown going to be extended? Essentially, I can put in here whatever is meaningful to my business or to me in my business. So this could be tailored directly towards the CEO, or it could be tailored to the IT manager. Again, it's really getting all that data into a unified space to let me see what I want to do. A lot of this is self-serving analytics, so it really allows me to also dig deeper into what I'm looking at. So if I see here, for example, so I've gone and I've taken a dashboard on sales and I've just put a bunch of things that I thought I would want to see. So I've got a graph here of my revenue per day over the last month. Some of the new features. So one thing I just want to mention is Cognos. Everything in the new Cognos is underpinned by AI. Everything that it does, all your data that brings into here, it takes that, it learns, it starts providing more suggestions. It's going a lot more forward thinking in that it's starting to tell you also some things that you may want to look at. So if I take here, I can say, give me some insights on my data. And this is not something I've built. I've literally just drawn this graph and it's saying, well, these are other things that I can find. It's immediately going to highlight, that's the average. It's going to say, for this average, these ones that I've highlighted, these are things that are something you should investigate. It's saying this is unusually high. This is way higher than the average. This one is unusually low, and it's giving it at a 95% confidence that it's really something you should be looking at. So it's going to highlight this, and it's going to say, okay, well, maybe you should be looking at this. With Cognos, obviously, because everything's interconnected now, I can do that. I can draw into this specific day and go and see the measures for that specific day. Taking that further, I could then go and see, okay, well, this employee, how did this employee do so well? And I can go and look specifically at that employee for that specific day, and all my measures change. So it really allows you to dig deep into the data. Another feature, again, with this AI is I can also go and forecast. So I can tell this to forecast. Now, this obviously is not the same forecasting that your finance team guys would typically do. It's not, it's purely a statistical forecasting. It's purely going based on the data that I have and the trends that I have. Let me go and forecast what your next 5 days will look like. You can set it to be 10 days, 20 days, whatever you want. And it's going to go and say, based on the data I have, what does it predict your next sales will be? And you can see it's kind of following a pattern here based on this data. Same thing here. I did a unique customer trend, so I could see that the unique customer is going down. So let's see what this thing predicts. It predicts that it's still going to continue going down. It's going to go up a little bit and then go down. Like I said, this is it using all the data that it's got that's in this model. But this data essentially could be your ERP, it could be your CRM, it could be those loose Excel spreadsheets that every company has floating around. You can bring it all into a central place that you can report on what's important to you, and you can really get to the bottom of those numbers. So you can start at a very high level, see exactly at a high level what's happening, and actually go down and dig. And that's why this tool is great to run across your whole business, whether you're at the top, at top of your business, or even just doing some analysis, to see how I did on a day-to-day. So your salesperson could actually go and see how they did on a day-to-day. It just gives you that power and that flexibility to actually really know what's happening every single day with your business. And it's a single unified view. So you don't have to go to this report and go to that report or open this person's email. You should have everything here. The other thing that I really want to highlight is it's no longer a case of you need a highly skilled data person to build these dashboards. Again, it's very much you building your own dashboard. It's you put in there what you want to see, and allows you to work with it. So one of the things that you can do here, so let's just turn off the insights, turn off forecast. One thing that I can do here is further explore the data. So I can create new explorations, which again could lead into new dashboards if you wanted. So I could create a new exploration, and again, a lot of this AI engine is actually going to tell you, so in basic English terms, it's not terms that, you know, is data driven, it's basic English terms. What are you looking at here? And then what you can do is go and say, okay, well, what do I want to look at? So if I said profit, for example, it's going to go and say, well, these are some cool visualizations that you can do. You know, it's going to suggest those terms that it came up, sorry, going back, those terms it came up with was look at the data and looking at your patterns. Again, with this being AI and it learning as you go, it looks at the things that you're doing. So if you're looking at profit lot, it's going to suggest profit to you. And it's going to say, well, you know what, this is a good graph. And now this is nothing that I've pre-built. This is the system going and saying, you've looked at profit. Here's an interesting graph that we think you should be looking at for profit. And it's gone and generated this graph. And this, let's see what this is. So this is basically said, we're going to do the stock item and the profit. So you can see per stock item. And it's gone and created things like these groupings. These are nowhere in my data do I have groupings where it's gone and kind of said less than 339 to 1,324. This is stuff that it's done, you know, total number of results for quantity for all values profit, 228,000, average quantity. So it really gives you those in English words. It's no longer you need a team of data scientists or a team of data analysts to kind of tell you what you're looking at. And this is all due to the AI engine that's running in the background. So this, I could go and then create a new dashboard, or I could go and create a bunch of new explorations and put those into dashboard, and I can save and reuse these. So you don't have to every single time go and create new ones. So I'm just going to close up for now. Going back to here, another cool thing that you can really do with the new Cognos is you can actually start asking it questions. Again, like I know I'm emphasizing this point, I really want people to understand that, you know, this is a tool that everybody can use. It's designed for self-service. It's really designed that you don't have to be a technical person. Technical person absolutely can use this as much. You know, I put all my stuff in here and I love to get, like, you know, actually go and analyze it. But you can ask it simple questions. Show revenue. Now, bear in mind, nowhere in these data sets that I've got of the sample data do I have revenue mentioned anywhere. So I haven't said any column, there's no column named revenue, there's absolutely nothing that has any connotation with revenue. But this AI engine, it's just, I've got a lot of data now, I brought in a lot of data sets, there's public data, there's a whole bunch of things. So it takes a few seconds to scan, but this AI engine is essentially going and saying, well, I think revenue is related to profit. And this is things that as you do more and more and you select more and more, it's going to learn more and more, and it's going to become quicker and faster, and it's going to be more accurate. But already there, I've said show revenue. Again, I have nothing, I haven't done anything pre-built in the background to say revenue equals profit. It's gone and said, I know from my dictionary that revenue and profit are similar, or maybe something you may be interested in. And it's going to tell you a whole bunch of information then about that profit. It's going to tell you what reports have it, what dashboards have it, what data sets have it. It's going to tell you how it's made up. It's also going to suggest other questions you may want to ask. It's going to say, okay, well, what influences profit? And here it's going to tell me all the columns or all the things that influence profit: unit price, tax amount, quantity. What influences that profit? And I can go and drill down into each one of those. And again, I can have dashboards on all of those, and it'll just come up and I'll say, well, this is where you can look at that. So it's really changing into, how do I ask my data simple questions? How do I, you know, ask it, what do I want to see? And it's going to drive me to the right places. It's, you know, it's almost like your Google. Your dashboards are becoming your Google. If I've got a question, I type it in here, and it will actually show me where I should be going. You know, yeah. So this is, you know, again, like I said, it's underpinned all by the AI that runs in the background. It's all in the latest versions of Cognos. another thing that I want to go, so we support quite a few different analytics tools, you know, Power BI, ClickSense. We've got a couple of them. One of the big reasons why I've decided to go for Cognos today and show you guys Cognos is to work on with what Michael said. So Cognos is the only one that has a direct connector to a planning tool. So this is plugged directly into Michael's model. I've just thrown a bunch of metrics on here. The point that I was trying to show is anything that Michael does in his tool, here's another place. Again, when I say unified, I really mean across your whole business, and that includes your finance team. I can bring all that data in here. Cognos is the only one that has a native connector to a planning tool, and that's why I went with them today. These dashboards, they've become quite easy to set up. I got this set up in, you know, a couple of hours. I got all these dashboards set up, and this is across a bunch of data sets, including what Michael's done. So if Michael had to go and make a change to his versions or add a new version, it would be fully accessible here. I would be able to go and see exactly what he's done, you know. So it really is that one view of my whole company, of how my company is running. I don't have to go to multiple places. I don't have to go and ask this person, hey, how's this looking? I don't have to go to my different teams. It's a consolidated view. The great thing about Cognos as all now is, you know, we can get a user license on the basic, which most of the stuff I'm showing now is available in the basic edition, and user licenses you can start getting up. They've got an on-demand service from $22, $23 a month. You know, it's something that we can get you up and running now. It's not, you don't have to have this big enterprise edition. Sure, I mean, if you're going to grow across your whole organization, you want to give everybody access, then it is a different story. But we can get the right people looking at this data fairly quickly. We can bring that data in, we can model it, you know, in the data modules in a fairly quickly fashion that the people have access, and it's, you know, it's on the cloud, it's immediately available. You can create dashboards for your mobile, so if you prefer looking at it on your mobile devices, that functionality is there. Yeah, so it's really a nice one. I think it's something that, you know, we're using more and more internally. So as Belinda mentioned, they're doing the planning every day. We're now bringing in our other stuff, you know, our data is not necessarily inside that planning, and we're giving ourselves this unified view. The next thing I want to talk about, so it's no slides or anything, and it's just really a discussion on the data space and where we are now. I know a lot of companies, I see from the customers I'm dealing with, a lot of the companies already are on this move to cloud, or this journey to cloud. I think now more than ever, it's become more apparent as to that need for it. And I've heard of customers that have 4,000 employees, but they have 500 VPN connections. And now with this, they're trying to juggle these 500 VPNs across 4,000 companies. These are not issues you traditionally have with cloud. These are things that cloud solves. We've got people working remotely all over the place. With that, though, comes a whole bunch of challenges. So even if you aren't on cloud yet and you are thinking about it, there's a whole bunch of challenges that you have to consider. You know, I think in New Zealand, we're quite lucky. We don't have any of our own data regulations yet. Trust me when I say it will be coming. The rest of the world has it. New Zealand, I'm guarantee will have it soon. But as things stand, we don't have those regulations yet. We do have GDPR, obviously, which we are subject to, and other regulations which we're subject to. One of the problems we have now is, and one of the things I'm seeing is customers in, you know, this was a rush thing. It was something that nobody could have planned for. You know, people have all of a sudden had to start work from home, and they're trying to make, you know, exceptions for this. We're trying to, you know, last minute give people access. The problem with that is we're not sure what we're actually giving people access to. Do you know, or can you safely say that you haven't given PII, personal information, out to all your employees, that all your people are currently looking at PII and have access to download that to their home computers? Or can we safely say that they're not sitting there showing this to a bunch of people, they're showing people's salaries? This is one of the challenges, that security, that governance. Are we even sure that we're giving our people the right information? You know, how many people are sitting there without the actual information to do their jobs. These are all challenges that have become very, very real. We're in this lockdown 4 weeks. We don't know if it will get extended. You know, it's questions and things that I really urge people to start looking at, and these are things that we can actually help with. The first point call I'm stressing to all my customers is, let's start to know your data. There's great cataloging tools out there. It will tell you where your data sits. It will tell you what data you have. So whether you've just started this journey, or you're even planning to go on this journey, or you already are on this journey, or you are on move to cloud, no matter what stage you're in, I really want to stress the emphasis of getting to know your data, understand your data, know what is personal information, what is stuff that is sensitive. Know, are you regulatory compliant? Are you know your lineage of where your data comes from. Trust your data. Really make sure that the numbers that you're putting forward are actually trustworthy. It's definitely something that I can help with, and I'm be happy to, if any of you want to reach out afterwards to talk about it. It's just something that I really want you guys to consider. No matter where you are on that journey, start getting to know your data. I think it's becoming more and more important. The more and more people are actually seeing how much value is in data. A couple of years ago, people they would have thousands or millions of records of data, and it would just be data. Nowadays, there's actually dollar figures associated to that data. Business decisions are all made around that data. So it's just something that I want to leave you guys with, to start thinking about really understanding your data, and it then helps with this dashboard. That's all from my side. I'm going to hand over back to Belinda.
Unless anyone's got any burning questions, feel free just to email me or sing out if you've got any questions. If you want that free trial of CubeDocs that we promised, we'll be in touch and offer that to you guys. I know IBM is helping some of our government clients with some of the AI components that they can use for free in the next 90 days, and I'll share that after the event. We will record, we'll send through a recording of the session so you guys can share with your team, or if you have any questions. But I hope it was useful. Like we said at the beginning, we're all in this together. We're really trying to help out. Everyone's got a plan every day. If there's anything you guys need from us to help you plan, sometimes some of the clients are saying, you guys go out, fight the fires, do all the hard work, let us help crunch them as quick and fast. We're here, we're available. Just sing out to us and we can help you. So I hope you guys enjoyed the session. Feel free to send me any questions you have. Stay safe, and let's hope we all get through this very quickly. So thank you everyone for your time today, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon. The sun's out, so it's looking pretty good for all of us. So thank you everyone for coming.